Teen Speak. Empowering today's youth. The purpose of Teen Speak is to allow teens a safe space to share stories and strategies around challenges and inspire other teens on how to meet their own challenges or make their mark in our world. Some of our guests may have done some inspiring things that may not resonate with everyone's views, be it personal or political. This is not a political podcast, and though we have our own personal views, our guests do not necessarily reflect our views. They are simply here to share a story and experience in hopes it inspires others to be the best version of themselves and make the impact they desire in the world.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Teen Speak, Empowering Today's Youth. I am Youth Leadership and Empowerment Coach Antoine Thompson in North Carolina.
And I am Youth Empowerment Leadership Coach Keith Senzer, based in New York.
New York, North Carolina represented, and today we have another young man from North Carolina. This is a young man I know very well. I've known him for about 7 years, and I've seen him grow from a middle schooler, and he's now a junior at Greystone Day School. And he is a young man that has a lot of promise, a lot of energy, and we're excited to have Drew Bitzer join us. How are you doing today, Drew?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing magnificently marvelous, as I always am. You know me.
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, first thing I want to ask you, Drew, is for you to share with us who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
So, as he said, I'm Drew Bitzer. I'm from Salisbury, North Carolina. I'm a junior in high school at Greystone Day School in Meisheimer, North Carolina. I love sports. If it was go out with friends or watch sports, I'm always going to pick watching sports because that's just who I am. And I'd rather just watch a basketball game than go and talk to friends because I just find basketball or any type of sport more fun than that. I play 3 sports: soccer, basketball, and track. I've played basketball all my life, and I just started running track last year. And soccer, I only play soccer because we don't have a football team, and it keeps me in shape for basketball. So that's all really you have to know about me. So
that's all we need to know about you.
I think I'm a fun guy. I mean, if you ask others, they may say I'm a bit wild at times, but it's just because I'm an energetic person and I have no filter. So whatever pops up here, I'm gonna say it. And if some people don't like it, but if you don't like it, then just don't ignore me. Just ignore me or just tune me out. So that's what I like to defend myself. And if you say something about me, I'm not gonna turn the other cheek. I'm gonna come right back at you. So, but that's really mostly it about me.
Well, I'm going to add to that. You are very outspoken, but it's also a sign of confidence, right?
Yes, sir.
We've had the conversation about confidence versus cockiness. It's great to come across confidently and lets people know that. And your point about somebody says something, you're going to hold your ground, and that's what you have to do. But it's about doing it respectfully, and that's one of the things that you've learned to do really well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I have a question. Just because, we're talking about teens, right, and what goes on. So clearly, your confidence comes through. And I love the fact that clearly you don't care what people think, right? You're willing, you're who you are. And
yes, sir.
Really important to be authentic and be able to just be who you need to be and not care what people think. It's a really powerful place to come from. But what about, have you ever had scenarios where you're able to use your strength of, not being afraid to speak out to, witnessing something going on with other teens that you felt like this isn't right, like having to stand up for somebody maybe that couldn't defend themselves, or you ever had a situation like that, and what did that feel like and how did you manage it?
I think, yeah, I've had multiple times where that's happened, especially during soccer, because last year we were like a senior heavy team and we had a bunch of freshmen, and the seniors wouldn't really pick on the freshmen, but they wouldn't really treat them nicely or fairly, in my opinion. So one time we were walking in the locker room and a freshman asked to use a locker, and there was no one sitting in the locker, and the senior was like, "No, you can't have it because you're a freshman." So then I kind of stepped in. I was like, "Just let him use the locker because he's a part of the team, and we gotta band together and just be in it together." And by the senior not letting the freshman have the locker, it just didn't feel right to me. So I was like, I need to step in and do something about it. And I mean, that happens all the time, and I think sports. But I just try to like be the best leader I can be, and I always kind of lead by example because I try to be outspoken, but sometimes I feel like it's just better to kind of like be quiet and just lead by example in some ways.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Sometimes that's the best leaders are those, right? Sometimes
Yes,
the
sir.
true power comes from observing leaders that possess that versus taking action. Just doing what you need to do and
Yes,
setting an
sir.
example is oftentimes a much more impactful way of leading than telling you what to do or leading
Yes,
by.
sir. And to me, I gravitate towards people who lead by example, and because some seniors on our basketball team, they would tell us what to do, and that just I was like, how about you show me that you can do that first, and then I will follow your lead, because I would rather see you do it first, and beside or versus them asking me to do something, but they can't do it. So I'd rather, I mean, for me to see that you're a leader, I need to see that you can do it, and then you can do it, and then you can and ask us to do it as well. Because if I know you can do it, then I can do it as well.
Sure.
So that's my big thing.
And I'm gonna stick to this leadership thing, Drew, because you gave me a great setup. So Keith, every summer, I think which I told you before, we have a summer league, and I have the high school kids that are actually coaching the younger kids. Now, Drew started with us when he was in the fifth grade, and he is now not only a participant, but now he's a coach. He's coaching and mentoring the next generation of leaders, and he gets the opportunity to coach fourth through ninth graders last year. And so, Drew, I'd love for you to share with us, just based on what you just shared with Keith and myself about the experiences you've had about leadership with your basketball team, what the experience of being a leader in that summer league has done for you, and how has it helped you in your leadership skills?
It definitely gave me like the other perspective, because all my life I was the person being told what to do and having to look at other people lead. But to be the leader, I mean, it felt really good. I mean, I was able to like really break things down, and then I could like call on. I knew I could lean on some of my players, like Isaiah. I knew I could lean on him because he respected me, so I knew I could call on him to be a leader and that he would lead. So it really gave me like a coach's perspective, because I've never had that perspective, but now I see, when I'm watching my teammates try to lead, I'm like, okay, now I have that coach's perspective, and I can, you know, kind of lead. I can help them lead a little bit. I can be my own leader, and it just gave me a really good perspective, I feel like.
Great.
Yeah, I think the other part, Keith, I'll tell you, he mentioned a young man, Isaiah. I think Isaiah listened to you more than he did me, because Isaiah played for me this year. I think he listened to you better than he listened to me. So you might be a better leader than me. Oh,
Different type
what's that different type? Yeah.
leader.
Oh, absolutely. And Drew's is energetic, and I'll have to share some videos, some clips of him. Man, this guy, when he gets into it, he reminds me of me, his coach. He gets all into it. But I mentioned early on before we came on that I was going to reference something that we talked about a couple of years ago in a group setting when we were talking about, if you might remember this, I asked you guys the question, who should be developing the leaders of tomorrow? You remember me asking that question, and we were going around. You had a very interesting answer. And if you remember, if you don't, I'll kind of lead you in. But I think you remember what you said when I asked you that question?
I don't think so, no, sir.
Okay, so I'll give you some insight. The couple of the answers were people like Keith and myself, the old farts, people like Coach Hayden, or yeah, or kids are in college. Who has the most impact on your generation of young people, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I mean, I think of it. I, I'd say it's 50-50, because I feel like we, as the current generation, have a big impact on our current generation. But I also feel like the people who are like maybe 2 years older than us also have a big impact on our generation as well. But I think it's up to us, our generation, to have an impact on our own generation, because we know what we're going through, and like, teachers and parents can say, "Oh, we've been in your same shoes." When like my dad and mom were not, they did not have iPhones and things like that when they were around, because they're kind of older. Um, but like, and they say that, I mean, I love them, but they say like, "Oh, we know how it feels." I'm like, "Well, no, you don't, because of you've never been in my shoes. You may have had a something that's happened to like make you feel like you've been in my shoes, but you haven't directly been in my shoes. I feel like with social media and everything like that, it just has changed how we look at things. And I think it's on my generation or like anyone's generation to impact their own generation, I feel like.
So I want to ask you a question and a follow-up question to that, all right? Because I think
Yes, sir.
it's great what you just said. I mean, I I have this I work with teens all the time, right? And the conversation I constantly have with them is I'm always very careful to let them know, like what you just said. Like I didn't have access to all this information. I didn't have the internet. Like like I remember when 9/11, you weren't even born. 9/11 happened, right? My daughter was a year. Like I told the babysitter, don't put the news on, hide the newspapers. I don't want my kids seeing this and being freaked out and scared, right? Like
Yes, sir.
now, like you can't miss it, right? So my first question is this: is I am a huge proponent of taking this generation, the Gen Z generation, and having doing what I do to teach this generation. How can you be better than my generation, right? How can you learn from what we don't do well and make it better? So I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you a follow up after. The first
Okay.
question is: so as a teen, right, having access to all this information and seeing what's going on in the world and seeing what's going on in this country, right? What emotions? How do you feel like when you look at our country? You look at our, and by the way, not this is not political, so we don't have to
Yes, sir.
talk.
Yes, sir.
Just generally, when you look at the government, when you look at what goes on in our Congress, when you look at just things that happen and right school shootings or whatever. How does it make you feel as a teen growing up? Like, do you have emotion? Do you get like ever get any like visceral reactions or like strong emotions around this? And like, what's your perception of that? And the reason I asked the question, I think a lot of what happened in politics lately is your generation, those that are 18, are actually going out and voting. When I was 18, I never voted. It's like, oh, I'm not
Yes,
doing
sir.
it. I'm not gonna run, right? What's your generation feel? Like, what do you see? How do you feel? What thoughts and emotions go through your head when you think about like I can change this, like, or I want to change this, and why?
Yes, sir. I think, and I mean, at my school, and I see my classmates, I mean, some of them really care about what's going on. And then others, not like myself, but others just like don't really care. And I think I'm kind of in the middle because there are things that I can control and I can't control. And to me, like when I see what's going on with the Congress and like the government, like I mean I care to a certain extent, but I'm also like, well, I can't control anything about that. So why would I get emotionally invested? I'm the type of person like if I can't control it, I'm not really gonna get emotionally invested in it. But I feel I'm not worried. I just hope I feel like we need to not turn it around, but make some tweaks in certain places so further generations can feel okay about where our country is and things like that. I'd say.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So here's my follow up question, right? We're all raised wherever we all grow up with whatever values, our enculturation, right? Like our external factors and the things we see and experiences that shape us and the values that our parents instill in us, right? That gives us a certain set of belief systems that we have, right? And
Mhm.
you have kids from all over this country, right? And some of those belief systems are not going to jive, right? You might have some on this side and some on this side. How does your generation, like, what do you think your generation needs to do to get you guys now talking about these things and finding common ground on it? So as you grow up, you're growing up together and you're understanding each other's perspectives and learning to put through put forth agendas that serve the greater good versus serving one side or another. Does that make sense, my
Yes,
question?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Um, I've always been a big guy. I've always been a big fan of just sitting down and talking. Like I think my generation needs to just sit down, talk about our differences, and like just respect one another because I feel as if we just can sit down, we'll realize we have more in common with each other than we think. Because, I mean, right now, I feel like everyone just kind of like yells at each other or they don't really know each other and like they're picking arguments. But I feel like if we can just sit down and just talk about it. Well, like most of these problems will go away. And I mean, I was raised, if you have a problem with someone, or like if you don't know someone, how about you just sit down and talk to them and get to know the real them? And that's something I like really advocate for, and I think we need to do that. But I mean, I think that's easier said than done. But if my generation can start that, I think we'll be set up in the long run for good things.
100%.
Yeah. Great answers, man.
Yeah.
That kind of leads to one of the things you put on your form when you filled out. We're talking about your generation, and you were want to kind of talk about the rising generations, and sensitivity was one of the things that you mentioned there. Can you want to elaborate on what you meant by that? This rising generation being sensitive.
I think, I think just the rising generations have always been told yes, and I think and they're not they're not told the truth. Like I like to keep it, like I like to keep it real, and like that, Coach D. Like I like to keep it real, but these younger generations are becoming more sensitive. I feel like, and their parents tell them yes to everything, and when they're told no, they freak out because they never heard that word before. And I think the freshman year at Greystone, they're sensitive because I'll be like doing something, and I'll bump into someone by accident, and then they'll freak out. Like they've never been taught no, they've never been taught, like I was always grown up like you can't always have things that you want. You have to work for them. But I feel like these younger generations, oh mom, I want an Xbox. Okay, you can have it. Like these younger generations don't know what it means to work, I feel like, or they've never been told no before, I feel like.
It's a good point.
So that yes, sir.
No, it's a great point, and I think the three of us would agree 100% that is a major issue because it's going to not it's going to enable this behavior to continue, but it also goes back to what you said before that this generation has the ability to to change things and go in that right direction, and you're in a position to be that type of leader. Forget about the basketball court. Everything I'm hearing here is you're a natural born leader, and you can influence people the right way. And I think that the examples you're even sharing are opportunities for you to right the ship for that younger generation. And I'm always telling you, embrace the opportunities, right? And you're putting yourself in a position to positively influence that next generation of leaders. So you definitely want to do that. So I want to ask you the second part of that, about the sheltered part of how this younger generation is somewhat sheltered. I think you wanted to kind of share a little bit about that.
Yeah, I feel like these younger generations, like sheltered is like the word I would use because at least for me, I was always told the truth because my parents always kept it like 100, as I would say. I feel like these younger generations, they're just not told the truth or everything. They're kind of half told the good stuff, and they're not told the bad things that come in life. I feel like, So that's what I meant by that.
Now, I also think it leads to another issue is this whole thing of failure, right? So
Is there?
when they're not told no, or when they get everything they want, right?
Is there?
We also tend to be protected from, right? A lot of parents want to protect. Listen, I'm a parent, right? I have 2 kids. Like I love my kids. I don't want anything to happen to them. I'm going to do everything I can to protect them. I just have my mindset is always like, I love my kids, but like, if you need to screw up, you need to screw up. Like I'm not going to bail you out. You need to experience it, right? You gotta feel the
Is
burn,
there?
right? And
Is there?
believe me, it's painful to watch as a parent. Like I know that I see him on flames, and I'm like, oh God, like it hurts to watch.
Is there?
But I know that I'm doing the right thing for them because I know there's a lesson there. And
Is there?
I think your generation for sure, it's just how do we get back to being okay with failure and understanding that, because the truth is now is when you got to take risks, right? Like I always say this, even kids that go to college and like, I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I'm like, you know what? You're 21, you're graduating college, 22. You got another 8 years to screw around and figure it out. When you hit 30,
Is
you
there?
might want to have a plan. But like
Is there?
now's the time to take risks and fail and screw up and try different things. How do you know, how do you get that message across to your generation and get them to understand the value of failure and risk?
I think the biggest learning in life comes from failure. I feel like because you now know what not to do. Because I feel like if you're always winning, you're just going to stick to that. But if you fail and fail and fail, you now know, okay, I do not need to do that next time. It's like, I mean, it's kind of like for me, like asking out a girl to on a date, or shooting an air ball in the bat, or shooting like an air ball in the basketball game. Like, okay, now if I shoot it and I miss it and I airball it, now I know, okay, I need to probably bend my knees more, and think about everything like that. And then next time when I do it, I'm thinking, okay, bend my knees, and then when I make it, I learn from failure, and that set me up for success. I feel like.
Sure.
No, those are great answers, Drew, and that's why I knew you'd be open and honest, and that's what we want to hear is because you're going to encourage and inspire more of your peers to not only think differently but also to stand their ground and be open and willing to speak their mind. And I think
Yes,
that's
sir.
one of the other things you're talking about shelter. I think a lot of kids are afraid to speak up sometimes because they don't realize that, or they're afraid of what the repercussions are going to be if they speak their mind. And you don't know, like you just said in your example, you don't know until you make those steps and decide to, hey, you know what, I'm going to speak up. And guess what? I may learn something by what I
Yes,
say,
sir.
or somebody may learn something from what I say. But
Yes,
either
sir.
way, you don't know until you actually speak up.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. So, what, like, joking aside, because we talked about it before, what do you want to do when you grow up? When you're a big boy, what do you want to do?
I would love to play a sport in college, and then I would love to work at ESPN or something like that, because I would like have my own talk show, because I feel like I can talk for hours about sports, and I feel like I'd just be good at that. I mean, they may have to censor me a little bit because I just start saying anything, but I mean, sports are my life. I love sports, so anything in sports would be fun to me.
That's great. There's a lot of opportunities. It's a big field.
Yes,
Plenty
sir.
of opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Well, when you get there, you let me know, because
Yes, sir.
I know a lot. I have a lot of people that I know in that field, so I'll be
Yes,
happy to
sir.
make an introduction for you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll back that up. Hey, Drew, you and I are close, but anything you ever need, you can always call me, right?
Yes, sir.
Well,
Yes, sir.
after today, if you can't get a hold of me, you get a hold of Keith, because
Yes, sir. Will do.
that's how we work. Two peas in a pod, man. I just have a
Yes,
better
sir.
tan than he does.
Better what?
Better tan.
Better tan. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. I'm
hey,
not look that good.
that's okay. Hey, well, look, let me tell you, he's not kidding when he says he could be a sportscaster. This guy will come in and be spouting off stats for NBA players that, I mean, you ask him, he knows it. And I'm sitting there going, Oh, by the way, who's your favorite college team?
Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson for sure.
Yeah. I knew that one was coming. So, history. You're a history buff. You like history?
Uh Not. I mean, a little bit, I guess. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
So
I mean,
you
everything
listed
in
that.
school. I feel like I. Or go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say everything I learned in school. I mean, I made this case to my dad. I can either Google it or won't need it in life. That's my kind of my attitude about it at the moment.
You can Google it.
Yep. Or you just won't need it. I mean,
Yeah.
either some of that.
Well, either way, you'll have it, and then you'll know you don't need it.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So I want to share something, and I'd love for you to talk about it because we talk about adversity a lot. Yeah, right. And
Yes, sir.
young people go through a lot of adversity. You went through a lot of adversity with basketball this year, and from a record standpoint, from a chemistry standpoint, just a lot of different things, right?
Yes, sir.
So, love for you to share the frustrations of the season, and then you can share as much or as little as you want, whatever you're comfortable with. But reason I want you to share this is a great learning tool because you have a great personality, great attitude. But when people hear about kind of what your basketball season was like, they'll be like, "Dude, how can you be like that with that kind of season?" But I'd love for you to share that.
So we haven't had a win. We haven't gotten a win in like 3 years, I think. And so it's been definitely tough on the basketball team. And so that not as many people try out anymore, which is fine. More playing time for me. But this season I started off the bench, or I, was like really deep down on the depth chart. Played our first game. I hustled hard, Then we had a back-to-back. So the next night I was 6-man, and that felt really good. And I had a bunch of points that game. Then I was 6-man again and just kept come off the bench. And then he finally put me in. And then just getting the chemistry down with some of my teammates was hard. And then, I tore my rotator cuff a few years ago, and it never really properly healed. And I'm not that big of a guy, so I kept falling on it. Having to battle through that while not winning was tough because it's like we're not winning and I'm hurt. Why am I doing this? And I was like, well, I'm not a quitter, so how about I just keep going until I can't. And then we got to a game on a Friday night at home against South Stanley, and they blew us out. It was like 70-17, and our coach was not happy with us at all. At halftime, he let us hear it, and I'll go ahead and tell y'all what he did. During the second half, he just pouted on the sideline, like, face like this, crying, upset, and we had no coach for the rest of the game. And so I'm a big guy. Is you never give up. Like, I don't care if you're down a million. I'm gonna keep trying, and that really hurt me because I love playing the game, and I didn't want people to think Greystone was just a bunch of quitters, because we're not. We're trying our hardest to win. It's just our coach is pounding on the sideline, and that's not a good representation of the team or guys on the team. And so then I went to the doctor for my shoulder, had to sit out 6 games, came back, played the last 2 games. We never won, but it was just the adversity, I guess, was just trying to finding a way to keep going, because when you're not winning, I feel like it's hard to keep going. And I was like, I'm not a quitter. Like, you gotta come on now, and just like, you gotta keep going and finish the season out. And I did, but it was just really hard because our coach, like I said, just he pouted. He never really apologized, and that hurt me because that's not who we are. But everyone out that game thought we were just a bunch of pouters. So that definitely hurt me. But I mean, it was just keep going. Don't give up and just keep going. So
Now I know that your coach is no longer there, correct?
yes, sir. He got dismissed last Thursday.
But what was one of the things that he told you was going to happen for next year before he was?
He told me I was going to be a captain, and I was really excited for that. And now I'm just not sure about what's going to happen next year. I want to play, but I also want someone who will come in and do it for the kids and not just the check. That's a big thing to me. Like, I got to see that you care. And I would just really hope, admin and the AD find someone good to hire, because it's my last year and I want to enjoy it. And, everything was lining up. I was going to be a captain for the first time in my life, but then, they dismissed him. So, it is what it is. I can't really control anything. So.
Now, Keith, what I heard there, I love for you to chime in, but what I heard was here's a guy that was deep on the bench, works himself into the 6th man, then works himself into the starting lineup. Then he gets hurt, misses 6 games, comes back, plays the last 2, misses 6 games, and by the end of the season, coach tells him he's going to be a captain next year. Resiliency at its finest.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the other thing, what I was going to comment on is I love how because this is one strategy I wish so many other teams would adopt. When you said you can't control what you can't control, and you're not going to get emotionally invested in something that you can't control. Like, I don't think you realize how powerful a statement that is and how true that is. And I think that is such a hard thing for teens to do, right? Like because I say it all the time, but again, that's why we do this podcast, right? Because it's one thing hearing it from me and Antoine, but hearing it from another teenager, right? Like, that is vital. Like, when you could recognize, you know what, I cannot control this, so I'm not going to allow it to control me. That's a growth mindset. It shifts your whole mindset around things. It's just such a healthy way to think.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, that's not so common among teens. So I hope anybody listening to this that is a teen can take that away from this, because that's like a golden nugget you just shared, and like,
yes, sir.
really powerful point.
See, I told you you're going to bring some nuggets, man. You're going to bring it, man. You're going to bring
Yes,
it.
sir.
Oh, by the way, Keith, his nickname is DB. We just call him DB.
DB.
and I have a special name for that, but we won't get into any of that. But it's all good.
DB.
Uh,
I didn't even know that. I'm not even sure what DB means now.
yeah, yeah, it's just initials, Drew Bitzer. But
Gotcha.
yeah, we got a special name. But he's
You said
dynamite. He's dynamite.
Gotcha. I thought you said Keith. I'm like DB. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yeah, down here in North Carolina, our language has several different meanings. DB could mean Keith. We don't know. Oh my gosh. Well, Drew, listen, man, I am so excited to finally get you on here. Yeah,
Thank you for
like I
having me.
said,
It was a lot of fun.
oh no, absolutely. We're
yeah,
not done yet. We've got some questions. We got some questions to ask you, man. You
Okay.
don't get off that
Okay.
easy, man.
Okay.
Good
All
Lord
right. Yes, sir.
Almighty, bruh. Hey, listen, we've already asked you some tough questions, and you've answered them, I mean, stupendously, marvelously well. And that's not even accurate and correct English, but that's Coach T English, and it works for me. So I'm going to ask you several questions. One of them you kind of answered, so I'm not going to ask you that about failure because you gave a great answer dealing with that, and your example with your basketball team is a great example of how you uh, face adversity and the failures of not winning games and things of that nature. But first question is, who is your biggest influence and why?
My biggest influence.
Hmm.
So it could be anyone. You said my biggest influence. There's a lot of people. I mean, you influenced me a lot because I know, like, when I called you after that night when he was pouting, you told me, what I could do, and I really took that to heart because I was like, okay, like I know he's a coach, so he knows, how that feeling is, and he really helped me because I texted the group chat. I was like, hey guys, we just got to band together and not let the actions of the coach derail us from the goal or from the goal of the season to win a game. And I'd say that, yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, but you're. I know your parents, man. I knew your parents got to be an influence in your life, man.
Oh
I
yeah,
appreciate
yes
that,
sir.
but yeah, that's a small influence, man. It's got to be a bigger influence in your life than that. So your parents are great people. So you got to put your parents up there.
Oh yes sir. I mean, my dad's always been, he's a tougher guy because I gravitate towards him because he he never played sports, but he has really good advice, and my mom does too. My mom's a lawyer, so like I she taught me how to fight for myself, and my dad taught me how to be tough. So I mean, they just really helped me become the person I am today.
they did a good
Cool.
job.
So
Yep,
thank
did a
you.
great job. They're still doing a good job. Got another year to go before you get out of that house, man.
Yes sir.
Oh, by the way, are you going to Clemson? You want to go to Clemson, right?
Yes sir. But I would like to run track somewhere. So I've been in touch with some coaches at like Roanoke, Virginia. I've been in touch with him, and if I can keep running well this year, I think they may offer me. So that would be awesome.
Hey, did you know that when I was assistant coach at Randolph College, the head coach at Roanoke was the head coach at Randolph when I was there, Clay Nunley.
Really?
Yeah,
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
he's a basketball coach there at Roanoke. Yeah, he sure is. So next question is, what is your biggest strength, and how would you use it as a superpower?
Probably, I'm really fast, so probably that because then I could run places and beat everyone places. And yeah, just kind of like the Flash, I guess. White lightning. So basically,
Yes, I saw that post on TikTok. White lightning. What does that say? How did you start that? If you need what?
it was like if you need a fast white boy, you know who to call. White lightning.
White lightning. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So my last question. Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
I said, "There's your superhero. We'll just call him White Lightning."
Just white lightning.
Yes, sir.
DB, white lightning, man. I love it. I
DB,
love it.
sir.
So, what kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
I want to obviously make a positive impact. I want people to look at me and like look at everything I've done, and no matter how hard, people's situation is, just like keep going because that's my thing is like I gotta keep going. I can't let one thing ruin my day. You can sit there and think about, oh, someone just said something mean to me for like 5 minutes, but after that 5 minutes is up, forget about it and move on. Just keep going and not letting others affect who you are because if I let people if I if I care what people think about me, I don't think I would be the guy I am today, and I haven't. So that's how I just I'm no filter, and that's always how I've always been. And if I let people affect me, then I wouldn't be here today. But I mean, I'm here, so probably just keep going, I guess.
Yeah, you're tough, dude. There's no doubt about that. I know some couple things you've gone through and you bounced back, and really proud of you. And I think you've shared some great advice for your peers and other young people to take away and apply to their lives. You know, not being sheltered, speaking up, taking responsibility, and all those good things. Keith,
Yes,
you want
sir.
to final thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think you shared a lot of good information. I think
Thank you.
listen, this is all about empowering, right, the next generation. So I think those leadership skills that you possess, like just who you are, this authentic person who you are, which is great. Like just make sure you stay that course, right? Don't let
Yes, sir.
anything knock you off of it. And because the truth is, you might not realize it, but you being who you are definitely impacting your peers. They might not say anything to you, they may not comment, but you should just know you definitely are. You are impacting
Yes, sir.
people.
Thank you.
Continue,
Thank you. Yes, sir.
yeah, continue to just be who you are and be authentic, and lead the way you're leading, because it's important, and it's gonna
Yes,
it's
sir.
gonna it's gonna help change. It's gonna impact other teams in a positive
Yes,
way.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, listen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody that's listening. And as always, just remember, the only limitations you have are the ones you place on yourself.
And just be you, because everybody else is already taken.
Yes, sir.
Till next episode, we'll see you.
Take care.
Are you looking for an experienced youth empowerment and leadership coach to help your teenager find their true north? Look no further. Let Coach Keith and Coach T show you how, through education, support, and inspiration. Visit their websites, shiftyourpower.com and coachtscorner.com, respectively, to learn more about the services they offer and to book a session today.